Good morning, everyone. About time. It's a great pleasure to be here and seeing some familiar faces. So this project that I'm going to talk to you about is a throwback to my origins. Firstly, because I'm South African, and that makes me a bit of a tree hugger, and also because of my professional background. As was mentioned, I was a consulting professor of aeronautics and astronautics at Stanford for 8 years. And then based on events that happened in my personal life, I became involved in biotech. If any of you have recently had wives, or if you yourselves have been pregnant recently, you very likely got our test. This is one of my companies, that's NatureEye, where we offer non-invasive prenatal testing. We are leaders in women's health, oncology, organ transplant genetics, and we've developed the highest volume clinical genetic test in the history of the country, actually. So I'm involved in biotech predominantly. I'm executive chairman of a number of public and private companies in biotech. But about 3 years ago, I moved from the CEO role to the chairman role in a few companies, and I thought I'd have all this free time on my hands, which turned out to be delusional. But during that delusional moment, I started to pursue some passion projects, and one of them is conservation. And I volunteered for the Technology Council of the World Wildlife Fund. We were evaluating all sorts of tools and technologies from conservancies all over the world to help with conservation. And I started to think, well, instead of doing these onesie-twosies evaluations, what if we try to change the paradigm? Could we make nature conservation much more fundamentally profitable? Because that's the way to effect a sea change. And came up with this idea of enabling people from anywhere in the world with a good internet connection to log on to a drone as a virtual avatar and explore these amazing, iconic locations all over the world in this real-time avatar setting. We couldn't really build that within the World Wildlife Fund. I set up a separate entity, and we hired a bunch of really top engineers, especially people from the leading drone companies like DJI out of China. And for about 4 years, we built the system. And so I'm very pleased to present you with NatureEye. So the concept behind NatureEye is twofold. Firstly, we want to enable wildlife conservation to be much more profitable so that you can generate revenues from these experiences. We split the revenues with the wildlife conservancies that we work with without requiring people to get on a plane and fly to different continents, especially with issues of carbon footprints these days, and without requiring a lot of people to stay in your lodges. So that is something that can really transform conservation. And then the second goal is to transition into virtual tourism, which is a roughly $1 trillion market. As the drones become smaller and the flight times get longer and they get cheaper and regulations get streamlined all over the world, we expect that this will be a key component of exploring the world from your living room. So, since a picture is worth many words, I'm going to play a 1-minute video for you. And let's see. So that is Cambodia. That's the Iceland area. That's Botswana. I think that's Sibuya in the Eastern Cape. That's Iceland, where the continental rift comes together. I think that's Elephant Sands. I think that's Tsavo West in Kenya. That is the Cape, where they've got endangered rhinos. Some very non-endangered humans. That's Mekong River, where you have endangered freshwater dolphins. The last one, I believe, was Elephant Sands. You get the idea. So that is just some of the locations, and I'll talk more about all of the partners that have lined up for this. So here's the concept. You log onto a drone. It's a 30-minute flight, and you can fly this avatar, learn, explore, take photos, which you can share with your social communities. And the cool thing about this is, oh, by the way, you see on the bottom right, now we've got infrared drones. So when you fly in areas like Elephant Sands or Chulu Hills in Kenya, where there's a lot of drought and it's sometimes difficult to find wildlife, people can turn on the infrared camera, and then you can spot these dots in the horizon, and you go and explore those dots and you see what you find. I mean, it's really an uplifting experience. So the cool thing about this is this technology would not have been possible a few years ago. Firstly, you need these drones that have long flight times, high zooms, so that the animals don't get disturbed, or that you're out of the range of human disturbance. And then there's the software on the drones, which has just become available at reasonable commercial cost recently, where with recent AI, we've got image recognition for obstacle avoidance, automated navigation. If the drone's running out of batteries or issues on the terrain, the drone can avoid the obstacles, return home to where the batteries recharging are. So this is an experience that's really streamlined based on all of the recent AI technology that we can leverage. And then the other key component is the communication systems. There are a few locations where you can get high bandwidth, low latency comms that gives you the real-time control of the avatar and also the beautiful video experience with 4G and 5G cellular. But those are very sparse. Vast majority of the time, we need Starlink. And Starlink, as well as a series of other satellite systems, is going to make this virtual tourism concept achievable all over the world. We're placing Starlink terminals all over the place now. It's beautifully engineered for an immersive experience. If any of you are gamers or your kids are gamers, you'd pick this up right away. If you are not experienced, like my mom, it'll take you 5 minutes or so, but it's quite intuitive. So I'll just step you through the controls, since I hope some of you will take a spin. In the bottom left, you see you can change your orientation left and right, and you can move up and down. In the left, you see a vertical bar that shows you your position relative to the geofence. So we geofence this so that you are safe relative to your height in terms of interference with air traffic, etc., or any other safety issues. And we geofence at the bottom to protect the animals and the disturbance for humans. At that points of interest box, you can click on that and the drone will take you to various points of interest. Like if you're in Iceland, you've got the cave where they filmed the Game of Thrones, and you've got the volcano, and you've got a continental rift. So people can just click buttons and the drone will take you to these locations. The top, you see your battery life. Top right is your lateral map, and your guide will be present there by video. And then your camera controls are on the right, and forward, backward, left, and right on the bottom right. So you can basically fly this thing with your hands on the keyboard, just like gaming, and it's pretty intuitive to pick up. In terms of near-term scaling, we put as much of the infrastructure as possible on our partners, and I'll talk about our partners soon. They will typically hire the guide, they will manage the communications infrastructure, manage the drones, and we focus on providing the cloud infrastructure. So it's a reasonably scalable model. We can run it at decent gross margins right now, but there are transition plans to get this global, which I will talk about. And I should mention the regulations. In some cases, you can fly a drone without requiring a person on the ground. In most countries, the regulations are converging so that you need to have a person on the ground who can take over control of the drone at any time. Even though they're not hands-on, they need to, in theory, be able to take it over if they want to. So here's the partner pipeline. We've got some absolutely beautiful partners set up. I talked through some of them on the left. Most of those on the left are actually live now. There are a couple of wonderful partners coming along. I'll mention two. There's the Tonga site where you can see whales and dolphins frolicking, hopefully frolicking, in the oceans as they go through their migratory pathways. And some of you might have remembered the David Attenborough Life on Earth series, where they covered the snow leopards in Kyrgyzstan, sorry, I'm South African, I mean Kyrgyzstan. And this was a beautiful series focusing on these endangered species. So we're actually working with Kyrgyzstani government and their nature reserves, and we will be setting up to spot the snow leopards in Kyrgyzstan really soon. But there's a lot of wonderful locations. The ones on the left are in partnership, the ones in blue are in contract negotiations currently. And on this page, you see the set of locations that have expressed interest to get in line for the system. So it's all over the world. We don't have the bandwidth and the operational size at this point to support all of these locations. The goal was to just do the launch and to see how people enjoyed the experience. So we did this launch with a limited number of locations, and the results have just been absolutely wonderful. The reviews, some of which you can see on the right, have been amazingly positive, and we just wanted to see what the Net Promoter Score was, because if you can delight the customer, whether it's in healthcare or virtual tourism or anywhere, if you can delight the customer, the world is your oyster. And it's just a question of, you know, tweaking and operationalizing until you get the scaling right. So for those of you who don't know Net Promoter Scores, they go from -100 to +100. Any detractive comments or constructive criticism goes negative, everything positive goes positive, and 0 would be a ambivalent score. 76 is just an amazing score. I mean, that's higher than Amazon and Apple. I see some of you with Apple phones. If you dislike Apple as much as I do, I don't think that's very impressive. But in general, a Net Promoter Score of 76 is wonderful, and the consumer reviews have been great. And I'm actually going to read you a review that came in recently from Mia Madre, from my mother, because she is an example of the kind of users that are just so uplifting. She's struggling with bronchiectasis. She's sick at home, and she was able to log onto the system, and she wrote this. And she's really having a hard time sleeping because she's got this severe coughing. She said, "I slept, stroking a chunky rhino with delicate feet, enjoying the flicker of an impala's ear, marveling at a bush buck's horn, pleasantly guided by Michael, and altogether bathed in a healing bowl. Many thanks for that dip into a spectacular natural world." So that's an example of the reviews that we've been getting, but that one doesn't count because it's my mom. But we've seen some amazing reviews come through that we wouldn't have expected. For example, one of our users recently was a guy in a wheelchair who's just used the system time and time again, and he's just saying how liberating and wonderful it is that he can explore these places and take pictures. So in terms of the target market, you've got a very large market for consumers, which is an enormous market, but needs to be reached with the correct marketing. There's 1 billion parents out there with roughly discretionary income who want to do educational, exciting, fun things with their kids, preferably from home. So that's an enormous opportunity. Online activities, couples on dates, groups of friends, etc. And then, as I mentioned, people with limited mobility. We can really service people in hospitals who are recovering, or people who just have limited mobility for various reasons. So lots of opportunity there to really make a difference in people's lives. In the education realm, we've just started to present this to certain schools. And you can imagine, one of the biggest challenges of teachers is to get kids engaged. What better way to get kids engaged than to, in ancient civilizations and history, than to let them fly a drone around Machu Picchu in Peru. And by the way, that was one of the first pictures. That was Machu Picchu in Peru that you can explore. Or to get them engaged in geography, like showing them the continental rift in Iceland or the volcanoes. And obviously, the aspects of conservation and bioprotection are clear. So, you know, if kids don't get turned on by that, then just give up on them, I reckon. But the schools were very turned on by this opportunity. And then there's the corporate market, where we have not really started. We did not focus on that for our launch, but the advantage of the corporate market is that it's a B2B marketing, which is a whole lot more cost effective. And you've got companies all over the world now with distributed teams. They're not spending as much money on travel and team building activities, but you need to have those teams be bonded and share human experiences that are not work related. And this is an incredible way of people coming together, sharing an uplifting experience. They can go exploring all sorts of places, gamifying, which I'll talk about. And that market, I think, is a very big opportunity. So what are the trends here? Obviously, you've got a lot of virtual tour type activities. You've got live streaming, and then you've got an upsurge of the metaverse platforms and the travel-oriented metaverse. But people want agency, and they want to engage with the real world. And this system gives them that ability to have agency with an avatar and to be engaging in real time and to some extent impacting the real world in various ways. So the market size is big. I think you can skin this in various ways. That's typical with market sizes, but you've got virtual events. That's growing rapidly. It's about 170 billion now and growing at about 12% a year, 13% a year. The metaverse market is gaining hold. It's about 80 billion now, growing very quickly, 50% roughly per year. And then global tourism is a $2.3 trillion market. So however you skin this intersection, you know, it's a to quote from Austin Powers, it's a very big market. It's several tens of $billion market. So how do we scale into the worldwide market? The idea is what we ultimately want to enable is a drones as a service concept, where anyone with a drone and licensure, which most drone people will have, can log their drone onto the NatureEye system, and then anyone can book a flight on that drone as a kind of drone as a service. So can you imagine if you are seeing a news report about the volcano that's going off in Iceland, or people who are crossing the border between Mexico and Texas and are not being stopped, or the riots in Paris, and as soon as you hear something, you can pick up a drone and fly it around and check the veracity of those stories. So it's going to be very useful as a truth verification and also as a virtual tourism tool where you can tour, you know, hopefully the Leaning Tower of Pisa from your living room as the drone regulations get sorted out, and you have drone owners in most cities or in every city that matters around the world.
I'm sorry, is this a not-for-profit or for-profit?
This is a for-profit, but we split the payments with the nature conservancies. For individual flights, we split it 50-50. For group flights, it's a different split, but the nature conservancies are generating significant revenue from these drones.
Right.
So
that's a social good aspect.
I will talk about that in a moment. Thank you. So we are actually enabling this concept. For example, for the volcano that's going off in Iceland in somewhere between 1 week and 1 month, we are going to have a drone that you can see the real-time footage of that volcano that you can play around with if you want to come to the site. But the truth verification concept becomes increasingly important as social media news comes to dominate our understanding of the world, and as AI becomes so prolific, because one just doesn't know what's real and what's not. And then there's all sorts of aspects of security and other areas that we can leverage with our drones as a service model. So now I'm going to talk about future opportunities. Some of them are near term, some of them are really future, but when you think about where my other companies have gone over 10 years, there's a lot that can happen in terms of leveraging this remote avatar experience to exert influence on the world remotely through this kind of overlap between real-time drones and robots and virtual reality and AI. So the early stuff is relatively straightforward. There's a lot of gamification you can do here. People can compete spotting animals and species of plants, and the more you spot, the more tokens you get. Also, people love to do good. I mean, despite all the shortcomings of humanity, it's quite amazing. When we do surveys of 700 people, they so badly want to help. with anti-poaching. They so badly want to participate in conservation. And the fact that their bookings are split 50-50 with the conservancies is just wonderful for them. So people who engage in anti-poaching activities, which is actually happening at some of the conservancies using our system, can be rewarded in various ways. For unique identifications, you can have NFTs. And then when people get awarded with tokens, that can unlock adventures and access to the site. And that brings me to the whole crypto natureverse concept. So this is not implemented yet, but I think this is where we will go. You can get these tokens in the form of green crypto, and a lot of these crypto companies are setting up these metaverse communities where you can only access them using that particular crypto. And we envisage that you can have this green crypto where you get reduced rates to join flights. You can pay guides in crypto and all sorts of gamified aspects. You will only be able to enter with this crypto. And then you can take this real world fused with the virtual world and make that accessible to people offline without them having to pick up a drone. So imagine you flew in Chulu Hills in Kenya, which is the scene of the Lion King or the original Pride Rock, and you decided you wanted to re-explore that. You could have a system like Unreal Engine replicate that universe that you can then explore offline. And anytime somebody's flying a drone, which will be most of the time over that area, you can populate your virtual world with what's going on in real time in that area. So you can adopt an animal and then see what's happening with that animal and explore that area, walking around your animal. There's a lot of interface between the virtual world and the real world using these AI tools that we can leverage. And then we get to the remote activity. So people love engaging, they love shopping at these places. There's all sorts of opportunities for selling arts, crafts, that kind of thing. But in the long term, we envisage that you will be able, the way we do the shopping is the guide's already got the communication infrastructure set up. He can just wear a head cam and can be talking to the people as you go through the shopping experience remotely. But ultimately, that can be enabled with virtual robots. I think in 10 years' time, there's going to be a lot of virtual activity going on, not just with drone avatars, but with actual droids that people will be able to operate remotely. Okay, so that's the concept. This is, that's not the team, this is the team. And I'm the chairman, but it's got a wonderful team of people running it. My co-founder is Jonathan Sheena. He's an amazing engineer, MIT guy. We've founded a bunch of companies together. Natera, for example, was about a $14 billion company before the markets came down a bit, but I think it's going to go much beyond that in a relatively short order. Graham Wallington, who's our chief business officer, is the guy who founded AfricaCam, which had 45 million unique users. It was the pioneer in virtual tourism. And Gary is the chief operating officer. He's a physicist, worked at Stanford Linear Accelerator, then Microsoft, and then started wireless communications companies. So it's a wonderful team of people running the show. I, as executive chairman, kibitz. I'm not the person running it day to day, but it is an exceptional team of people who are charged with this mission of making the online experience in the age of virtual reality much more connected to the real world and uplifting. So thank you very much.
We've got about 2 minutes for questions, so.
You mentioned some of the that was kind of in the back of my head from the start. The kind of downside of this, poachers. How do you avoid, something that was created for good to turn into the other side of that?
Great question. So the way we allow access to systems in difficult areas, like where you've got rhinos, is people have to log on and we can get their ID and we can track their IP address. So although it's possible that poachers could use this system for harm, it's very unlikely that somebody is going to go through that process if they're involved in illicit wildlife contraband activities. We are up and running in areas that have endangered species, and that is sufficient. Is it absolute? No, but it does seem to be sufficient for their purposes. And they've seen a lot of poaching activity in some of these places. So they're actually using the drones to protect against poachers.
So I have a multiple choice question. So is the opportunity in the AI cloud aspect of this large? real big or massive?
I would say the virtual tourism market is enormous because this is something that the future can't come without. People are not going to want to get in a plane and travel to every place that they want to travel to, but they do want to engage with the real world.
Yep.
And the drones are getting smaller and cheaper. And so as the regulations get
And
sorted
quieter,
out-
they're pretty quiet, right?
Yeah, I mean, we geofence right now, so the drones don't disturb people on the ground, but that can be changed over time depending on the size and quietness of the drones. But I do think this is something that is going to be one of the fundamental aspects of tourism going forward.
You're gonna be at dinner, right?
I know you.
You know me.
Oh my goodness me, how are you?
Excellent.
I thought it might be you, but I thought maybe I'm imagining it. How are you, John?
I'm doing very nice.
It's great to see you.
Quick question, likewise, catch you outside. Another big startup from you, John Cucina, I think the gamification is fabulous. Speak a little bit about the uptake, growth in members, growth in use. How is the public reacting?
Well, I mean, we can use this right now, is that right?
Yes, you can use it now. The focus of the launch was just to see that people loved the experience. You know, people had to really have a positive review, and we absolutely achieved that. In order to get rapid uptake, we got to spend money on marketing. So that's why I came to this conference, because it's now time to scale this. The uptake has been great, but to get mass uptake, we really got to spend money on the marketing. We are currently engaged with a set of gifting sites. And I don't think I can say who they are because there's going to be an announcement in short order, but I will say that they are the leading gifting sites, or a leading gifting site in the United States, and a leading gifting site in the UK, and then a leading experiential site. And the one that's been live recently, apparently we are one of the top performing services for that experiential site. So we are not spending a lot of money on marketing, but people seem to love it and the reviews have been fantastic. We need to focus on certain channels and spend money on marketing, and that's not something that I am going to be funding myself. So that's why we need to raise capital.
Well, fantastic. That's really great, Matt. Thank you so much.